Yeah, so I've got like the chat group up. My audio's on, so if you have questions or comments, feel free to unmute yourself and drop in the middle. It doesn't matter. What we're planning today, though, is we're going to go through the Word of the Week curriculum that we've put together, and we're just going to show you some of those examples. And then we'll talk at the end about how we're going to share that out and how that's going to get to everybody from here. Know that some of this is still in sort of a beta test, like we've been trying to put it together as fast as we can and do our actual jobs. So over the summer, some of this is going to get cleaned up if it's not the way it is, the way I want it right now. Any questions to start? Anybody want to hurry up and get something in before your chance is up? Okay. So it's sort of weird because I feel like I'm talking to myself, I'll be honest. Like, but let's go ahead and jump in. So when we started doing AAT like as a whole, here was our problems. Like we were assessing kids, we were giving out devices, and then we'd always go back, and it's probably the same thing lots of people see. Abandonment was pretty high. They were sitting on shelves because people really didn't know what to do with them, and they didn't have the help they needed to actually get there. So when we'd go out, people would say, hey, this is too hard. Our biggest two complaints all the time when we started handing out, like we started moving to iPads, were there's not enough vocabulary on here. Or no, sorry, there's too much vocabulary on here. That was the first thing they always complained about. And then they always said, hey, how do we add more? So there's too much, but how do we add more? Meaning they really didn't know how to use the vocabulary that was on there. And then parents, they would say, hey, parents don't want to use this, which was sort of like asking parents if they wanted to eat, let's say, pho, and they didn't know what pho was. You're not going to want to eat that. And maybe if you know what pho is, you're not going to want to eat it either. But it's a Vietnamese soup and it's delicious, but it's not everybody's cup of tea. But unless you really know what it is, like how do you say you don't want it? We're not giving them the tools that they need to actually decide what to do. So my goal today is just to walk you through basically what's in the lessons, how they work, how easy they are to use, and get some feedback from everybody so that we can make it better as well. Okay, so when we started to design this, first we knew it had to be like brain dead simple to use. Like we knew if we were going to put something out in the schools, it had to be so easy to use that a substitute teacher could walk in, pull it up, and actually use it. We knew that the other problem we were seeing is everybody was using AAC systems as snack time systems. Not exclusively, of course, but a lot more than we wanted to see. So we needed to tie it into the curriculum. And then the other thing is we needed a pattern. So we needed it to be every day of the week, you do, like week to week, you do the same kinds of things. And then we also needed a home piece and aided language. And then the other thing is we have lots of kids on lots of different systems. So we wanted it to be sort of UDL. So we wanted it to cover a broad spectrum of what people could use with it. We in our district, just to warn you as we go into this, and I'll show you some examples as we go through, we lean pretty heavily towards Proloquo to Go as our go-to AAC system. Having said that, this is adaptable for any other system that you're using, and we'll show you kind of how we work with that as well. And then we also use a 6x10 grid on Proloquo to Go, which is a lot of buttons. Again, that freaks people out at first, but we'll kind of talk about how and why as we go through as well. So here's what the lessons look like. Here's the cadence that they follow. Every single Monday is an introduction and a modeling lesson. So we introduced the core vocabulary, and the core vocabulary list that we used was from Gail Van Tatenhove or Tatenhove, depending on what part of the country you're from, and her developmental language list. So she has first 10, first 20, first 30, first 40. That's the list of words that we used to kind of develop this, and then we introduced a couple here and there where it fit what we needed. Every Tuesday is right now a literacy day, but we're adding in writing over the summer because writing is a piece that we've sort of left out. We went to an IEP the other day, and the kid had a writing goal to learn how to do pre-writing strokes, yet they were developing 3 to 6 word sentences on their iPad. We thought that's a missed opportunity. So we're actually going to add in writing to that over the summer. Every Wednesday is a math. Every Thursday, we do a review of the last 4 vocabulary words, so the last 4 words of the week. And then every Friday, we do folders. So on most AAC systems,
So they know who's
you'll notice that there's like a core vocabulary piece, and then there's folders to explore. So every Friday for us, this is going to be more Proloquo specific. They go in and explore what's in those folders so they can learn how to use the whole system. So let's jump in on what it looks like. And what we're going to do is we're just going to run through kind of week by week. I'm going to do this kind of fast. So if you have questions, concerns, anything like that, I think Kent's listening into the audio as well, so he can stop me and say, Eric, shut up. I need to ask you a question, okay?
I don't like my face being up there.
All of these are also actually in PowerPoint as well. So they can be used on an iPad. They can be used up on the projector. We've got it up on the Apple TV right here, so that you can just pull them up, start using them. So there's no, and they're also all designed so you don't have to collect any materials beforehand, because we knew when we started out, we were like, oh, if they got this and they got this, then they could do the lesson this way. But we understand that nobody really has time to do that. So all of the lessons are designed, open up the PowerPoint or print them up and use them from there, okay? So opening slides for us are just the word of the week and a picture that's on the device. We've actually started going back through and then adding in a fake button, as you will, because this is what it looks like on Proloquo to go to help them find it. So we just, what I'm going to do is just like quickly pretend like I'm teaching a lesson real quick and run you through it. So first thing is, here's our word of the week. It's my. So let's talk about my. Here's all the ways that you can say my. And we do this in part to keep people, reminding people that the kids who speak are part of this lesson, the kids who are using a switch, the kids who are using sign language, the kids who are using eye gaze devices, PECs, you name it, they're part of this lesson, right? This is developmentally appropriate vocabulary for most of our students. So there's a way for everybody to participate. So the next one is, let's find my on our devices. So on this one, you'll notice down at the bottom of the screen, there's a grayish black box that says, let's find my on our devices, tap and hold. Those are the teacher instructions. So if you are pulling this up for the very first time or handing this off to somebody, you're just going to say, do what it says in the little black box at the bottom. Okay, that's all the instructions right there. So on this one, the hand comes in, shows them where to tap and hold. Hit the next slide. Let's tap and hold. Then I can hit my. Okay. Most of our words, core vocabulary words, are on the front page of our screen. My is an exception, where it's 2 hits to get to the word. But most of them, what you're going to see going back a slide is the hand comes up, shows them where to point so that they can all do it, okay? And then we go into choral responses. So let's prompt our students to say my 3 times. So everybody, if you're saying it with your voice, say my 3 times. If you're saying it with your single switch, let's say it 3 times. And they can do it together. They can do it separate. You can take turns, however you want to do it. Then we talk about how to model my, because this goes back to that aided language piece. This is a pretty big gap for most of our teachers, especially in TAs, of how do you model language on a device. So what we have on every lesson is a slide that says, here's what we would say in a normal day-to-day setting. Here's how we model it on the device. So I would say that is, press my on the iPad and let the iPad voice my stuff. Let the iPad say my head hurts. Okay, I have, press it on the iPad, my lunch, my turn. This is get people, the teachers especially, modeling it as part of the lesson so that they can see how to do it during the rest of the day. And we do work with our teachers to say, look, at first, you might be saying 3 to 4 words, but you only need to model 1 on the iPad, and that's the core vocabulary word. One secret to all of these lessons, these are not as much to teach the students how to use it. It's to introduce it to the students and get them started. But really, it's so that all of the teachers know what the vocabulary is, how to use it, how to access it, and that as well, so that they can then model it throughout the rest of the day, because that's really where your power is. So again, down at the bottom, you see the little black box that says, read each sentence and model my on the iPad. So then we go through and we talk about, what does my mean? Let's talk about all the ways that we can use my. So my modifies nouns. So anybody who's hip out there, Kent might be hip enough to catch this. The first one is my
Adidas.
My Adidas, very good. Some of you want to say shoes, but that's because you didn't listen to the Beastie Boys in the 80s and 90s. There are some, we did make this fun for us, I'll be honest. Like you're going to see some of the slides, like there's some deep level nerd jokes going on. It's not just for the kids. But my house, my shirt. And what we would do is we would say my, and then we would say these, use our voice to say the noun, okay? My is a funny word because it doesn't have a whole lot of uses. It's basically as a modifier and an interjection. So the first one is two my's, that would be my. The second one is, oh my. And then my, you've grown. Like that's how we use my, is to like describe things as an interjection, okay? Again, your basic low language kids aren't really going to understand that, but the adults in the room are going to say, oh, I can use that this way during the school day, okay, right? When the kid spills his lunch all over the floor, I can say, oh my, you've spilled everything, okay? And that's the end of my. All of these lessons are about between 8 to 12 slides. They're meant to be used sort of as part of calendar time or group time or individually. But what we found is we made them longer. They weren't quite as useful. It was too hard to keep a group together. They took a little bit too long to do. So these really are like a quick introduction, quick, how do you use this word? How do you find this word? Get everybody started with it, and then remind them throughout the day that this is what we're doing, okay? Again, any questions, concerns, feel free to jump in, and we'll take care of them as we go. Okay, Tuesday. Tuesday would be literacy and writing. So I'm going to show you examples of both of those. These are all just stories that we wrote in order to get the kids using it, but you could also pull in any books that you want. And we're working on kind of creating a list of books so that when it's the word of the week, we have books that go along with that you could grab from your classroom. But again, we didn't want to say, oh, this is dependent on you being able to go and find this book to teach this lesson. So what we did was we created them on the PowerPoint slide where you can read them along with your students, and your students can voice or say the word every time it comes up. And again, these are, if you go through the core vocabulary lists and you line them up with, say, a Dolch word list or a sight word reading list, there's a really good correspondence. So you're going to see a lot of the same words coming up. So it just makes sense that we're adding them into literacy, which is also how we get it out of snack time. So the story of it is the core word of the week this time is it. So it is, of course, about a clown. Again, most people didn't catch that, but with the movie coming back out, it's starting to be funny to people again. So Garrett is a clown. He's going to work at the circus. And again, I'm just going to read this story to my students, and I'm going to have my iPad or my single switch or whatever system that kid's using out. And I'm going to read this story, and I'm going to do it like this. He sees a big tent. What is in? And then I'm going to let the iPad say it. Or on our systems, you could say what is in it, actually all off the front page on the iPad, because all of those are core vocabulary words. He hears a loud noise. What is it? And then we would stop and say, okay, what do you think it is? What makes a loud noise? We hit the button again. Out comes our elephant. Elephants make a big noise. So we could say, it is an elephant. He hears a loud roar. What is it? And we say it with using the iPad. Oh, it is a lion. He hears honking. What is it? It is a seal. He smells something yummy. What is it? And some of our kids who have been to a circus, although Ringling Brothers is gone now, so there's not too many circuses around. Feeling old, but most of the stories try to tie into something that they're familiar with. He hears yelling. Who is it? It's the ringmaster. He hears laughing. What is it? Clowns. It is fun at the circus, and it is over. So during the introduction lessons, the literacy lessons, the math lessons that we're going to get into, there's probably between 10 to 30 opportunities to model this vocabulary for students, or to have choral responses, or to bring them in, or to prompt them to use it as well. So really it's designed to start having teachers and students start to use it. In the other part of the literacy stuff that we started to get into, and we just started to do these ones, so they're going to come back into them, is writing. So on this slide, there's a red box instead of a black box because it was a different time when we were introducing it and we really wanted people to see it. But again, we're just going to review how do you access the word my. You tap and hold I, which brings up the pop-up box. You find my, and then we're going to go into a writing activity. So let's write my lunch is good. So our students would open up the food folder because all of the core vocabulary on our systems is in those folders as well. And then once that food folder is open, then they can say I and my, or tap and hold I, press my, lunch is good. And that's all on that page. So they don't, once they open up that folder, they can say that whole sentence, or in other words, in this case, write the whole sentence, right? So this is a writing activity because then they can actually, on our systems again, they can export those as just the vocabulary. So it would export to OneDrive, for example, that says my lunch is good. So they could actually write those sentences and collect those. Other AAC systems do the same thing on higher end ones. But again, this is starting to get kids into the also building language, but also understanding that they're writing and that they can produce, you know, answers and things like that. So another example, I want my goldfish crackers. So they're going to open up the food and then the snacks folder. And then I want my goldfish crackers. Let's write who is my teacher. So they open up people and teachers, which is a subfolder. And then say who is my teacher. Okay. Bus driver, same thing. And we tried to give them 4 or 5 times that they would write it. When we started doing this, we only had the writing. We had either the story or the writing. We're probably going to combine the two and they can use it how they want, right? Or you guys can use it how you want, I should say, now that it's a bigger group. Okay, so math. Math has been an interesting one because its core vocabulary isn't something that we typically think of with math. But for our low language level kids, it's actually a pretty good way to go. So here's an example of the word there and our math. So math, what goes, and again, we say there with the iPad. This is sequencing, right? Sequencing is our basic, you know, early level math introduction. So every time we're doing sequencing activities, we can say, oh, what goes, and press there on the device, single switch or whatever we're using. Put the same ones in there. So when we're doing sorting activities, we're using there. And again, you can see that this is something we can go through with kids and prompt them on, but hopefully the adults in the room are also going, oh, this is where I'm going to use this vocabulary during math time. So if they're doing even like teach boxes where they're sorting or patterning, this is where the core vocabulary comes into place. There are the numbers, and then we can count them 1, 2, 3. Measure to there, and we can practice measuring things or doing things like that in the class. Fill it to there, and we can, if you want, you can demonstrate filling things up or showing like that. But again, when they go to get a drink, when they go to get their lunch, you know, they can use this vocabulary in a math sense in those ways too. Okay, weigh it on there. So what does a scale do? Put the number, press the numbers on there. So the calculators, and a lot of these things, like the same kind of things repeat. So we usually have, in fact, on that one, the only thing we were missing was time. So there's usually sorting, patterning, time. Money is another one. I didn't have a money example on that one. Calculators, numbers, all of those math pieces tied into core vocabulary. Okay. And again, you could pull this out during group lessons, so your calendar time, or during another time, or speech pathologists could do this in a therapy session, but then really our goal is to get it into the classroom as much as we can so that it's being used more often. Okay. Thursday is always a review for us. So we review the last 4, the 3 previous words and then the word of the week. So we can kind of start tying those all together. So it's not just one week we do this, another week we do this, then another week we move on to something else, but it keeps them sort of tied together. So our reviews do a couple of things. Down at the bottom of this slide, you can see there's the symbols for our last few words. So we have mind, stop, not, and more this week. You wouldn't know that if you were just looking at the slide unless you'd already done those ones. So it's just to give kind of a prompt. So again, we go through though, and we show them all of the words that we've learned in the past to go through and just review where all of the words are, okay? And then let me just show you a couple of quick ones. So what does the red light mean? so we would ask the question, and then we would hopefully, some of our students would be able to say it means stop, or we could model stop on the iPad. Okay, so definitions, this one's fill in the blank. Whose glove is this? The baseball player said it's, and that's going to be mine on this one, because again, my choices are mine, stop, not, more. We also do some reviews where we talk about the pictures. So this is one of the introductory slides where the words were off, on, all, here. And we have pictures that we can then talk about as a group. So on this one, you can say, oh, the snail needs to get off of the alligator, or it's going to go in his mouth, or, you know, not, right? Because we had, in fact, here's the next slide. We did this one, and one of our students immediately grabbed their device and hit not, because they do not like spiders. But it gives you a fun way to just kind of interact with people and figure out different ways to use the core vocabulary in order to use it as a discussion topic as well, right? This one we used on, off, all. So his glasses were falling off. He has paint on his face. He is all covered in paint, you know, things like that. And we could just talk about what's in the picture with our kids. And again, your kids who are using a single switch can hit the switch. Your kids who are verbal can describe what they're seeing or what they want to say. So you get lots of different kinds of levels of interaction, okay? Again, he's falling off of his bike. He needs to get on his bike. He is going to crash, and then you could point down here. You know, his suit is coming off. You know, I like this. All of those kinds of things you could use to describe what's in the picture. In some of these slides, we also have the words off to the side to kind of prompt people as well. This is one of our older ones, so the slides were actually in the notes. We'll get them moved up though over the summer. So, or the words, sorry, the core words that you could use for it, the possible core words were down at the bottom. Next time they'll be on the slide. So again, look here, he's upside down. I like her dress. He's gonna fall down. All of those core words that we can use to talk about it. Same kind of thing as the lovely snail in the alligator mouth and the spider, although not quite as scary, okay? That moves us into Friday. And again, I'm going through this kind of fast, but hopefully you can see that like the prompts are on the screen, what you're doing is on the screen, and it's, you know, you can see quickly how to like adjust it up or down for different kids and bring in different things other than just what is there, okay? For us, Fridays are our folders. So for example, on this one, we're gonna go through the folder of the month was help, and we do one folder per month because there's so much stuff in there, but we also tie in the core vocabulary that they're learning that month to the folders as well. So we go through and we say, okay, here's how you find the here folder. Here's what's in it. So again, down at the bottom, you've got that grayish black box with what you want to say. So last week we looked at these folders. You can read the folder names. Remember, the most important button on here is the I need help button, because that's what we were focusing on with our students last one, the previous week, so that students could ask for help using a complete sentence. Help is also on the front page for us. So our one-word level kids just hit help on the front page. So these are the words that we're going to get to know in the help folder. Have your students push each one to hear the message. So I feel sick, call someone, something hurts, bathroom. Bathroom is always the first one that most of our teams have requested. They're like, how do I put, I need to go to the bathroom on here? This is how we do it. We leave it where it is. Besides that, I've never heard a kid start talking by saying, I want to go to the bathroom. So let's build some language first and then come back around to the bathroom. I understand that from a teacher perspective, it's super important though. Okay. And then when something doesn't feel good in our body, we can use it hurts, or doesn't feel good or it hurts, we can use this button. And then we would hit that button and demonstrate what that means or what it does. Oh, this one I forgot to, when I adjusted the slides, I forgot to put it back in the box back in the right spot. So here's how we say, I need to use the bathroom. Here's how we say, I feel sick. And then we talk about what it's like to feel sick and how it works, and you know, what are some symptoms. And then the and button. So I feel sick and something hurts, right? So it's not just one thing. There's two things going on for that kid. okay? Or, hey, I need to call someone. So when do we need to call somebody? When we're sick, when we need to call home, when we need our mom to come get us, anything like that, okay? And then we have situations where they go through and they use those folders to actually, talk about what's going on in the situation. So on this one, you'd say, oh, I hurt my ankle. What do you say? And then try and prompt them into, oh, I'd say something hurts, or I need help. These are ones that you can usually mime or act out pretty well if you want. I'm not much of an actor, so I don't do that. But we have some teachers that would, limp around the room and act like they were really hurt. But again, they don't have to bring anything in to do that lesson. It's just right there on the screen. So I have a stomach ache. What can you say? You can say, I feel sick. Okay. You're in an assembly in school, but you really, really, really need to go to the bathroom. What can you say? You can say, I need to go to the bathroom. And then we'd prompt them to do that on their devices, or we'd model it first and then gently prompt them to do it. You forgot your lunch at home. What do you need? You could say, oh, I need you to call someone for me. And then it could say lunch as well. Okay. That's the weekly lessons in a nutshell. That's examples, a pretty good cross sampling of those lessons. So again, we have them in one folder per week. And then within those folders are all of those. There's a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday within the week one folder. Week two, same thing. Okay. This year, we actually realized that we were missing a big component of it, and that was homework. Well, we didn't realize we were missing it. I should say we knew we were missing it a long time ago. We just didn't know how to make it uniform for parents. So what we've done is we have some teachers who will share the PowerPoints of the lessons and have them review the lessons at home with the parents. Other ones print them up and send them home. But we also have this page that we developed, and this is in every folder as well, or in every weekly folder. There is a page that you can print up. It's a PDF file and it's fillable. So like on the Monday there, the review the intro lesson and model 10 times. There's 10 little boxes off to the side where parents can check or initial. So you can actually track that they're doing it at home. And then there's some ideas down below of what they can do during that lesson. So ask the student if they need help. Again, this is on that help is the word of the week from this homework page. We have them customized for each core vocabulary word. So there's a different one every time, but again, they're fillable. So you can go back and change them, add them, do what you want with them. The literacy lesson on Tuesday, they're gonna review that literacy lesson and then model 10 times at home. And then again, it just says, hey, stories often have characters that need help. So you can find a book that needs help or something like that. Ways to use it with math, the review, the folder. And then we also did the weekends. And big part of that was because we decided as a district where for every student, we have to determine two things, right? One, we have to determine, do they need assistive technology? All of our AAC kids, that's a yes. Then the other question is, do they need it at home? So we had lots of parents saying, well, I want this coming home. And we said, well, it's not really the intent of that. Like sending it home just to send it home doesn't work. So our district policy is assistive technology goes home in order to complete schoolwork, right? We're not buying AAC systems for kids per se. We are providing AAC systems so that they can progress in their education. Yes, do students use language at home all the time? Hopefully, yes. But what does that look like, and what's our piece of that? So that's why we developed the homework. So if the AAC system goes home, it goes home with homework, meaning the parents know what they're supposed to do. We can track that and it comes back. So looking at it in a different way, if we had a kid who needed a laptop to do his writing assignments, but he didn't have a writing assignment, would we send the laptop home? Probably not, right? So the AAC system goes home with a purpose. And that's how we sort of get parents to buy into it as well. Like we need them to know what we're doing and to have a way that we can follow up. Because we were seeing lots of devices go home every day. And then the teacher would say, why am I sending this home? And I would say, that is a great question. I'm not doing it. So I need you to answer, why are you sending this home? And they're like, well, you gave it to us. I said, right. So the homework is a nice way to do that, right? It's there, it's easy, it's trackable. We have some parents that write us really good notes. We have a SLP who's been collecting, especially one parent's samples of all of that. And then we'll go back this summer and make a bunch of those changes according to her input as well. But this gives you a nice way, especially like when summer comes up and the parents say, well, I need the device to come home for the summer as well. You know, you can say, well, it goes home for homework, so what do we need that to look like over the summer? And does that need to look like an ESY? That's where we have our conversation on that. I will say we do have a loan policy over the summer, though, where we've been checking things out. We also do posters, so a word wall. In each word of the week folder is a Microsoft Word document that looks right now like this. It's going to change a little bit. So it's got the symbol that's on the device. It's got the word. And then it has a line right now. It's probably going to turn into a box. And that's the color that the word is on the device. So our devices are color coded going back to Proloquo. All of the verbs are in pink. So this one has a pink line. Next year it will have a pink box. So it's designed to look like the button. But then teachers can print these out every week and put them on their wall or in their room. And then they have a word wall of all the words that they've been using so that they can remind themselves basically of what kind of words they can use. Okay. The last piece of this, and then we're going to jump into comments, questions, anything like that. And if we went too fast and somebody wants to go back, I'm here. I'm happy to go back and review some of that stuff. But the last piece of this is actually getting people to model this language on devices. We have started going out to schools just on a rotating basis, and we go out and we model, we pick up the device and we go work with the kid. No matter what they're doing, we walk in, we look at what they're doing, we grab our iPad, we walk over and we start modeling for about 10 minutes using core vocabulary concepts. And then we grab the TA that we're working with, or we invite that TA. Sorry, we don't really grab people. It's not cool. But we invite them to take our place, and then we help them model for 10 minutes. And then we take back over for another 5. And usually by this point, they're telling us what we should be saying on the device. They're saying, oh no, you should say stop. You should say want. You should say different. So we spend about a half an hour with each school team at least, getting them starting on the modeling process. And the SLPs as well. Honestly, that theory versus practice piece is a big thing here. People conceptually understand what modeling looks like. Until you've done it for 10 minutes though, you don't really know how to do it. Once we've had people do it for 10, 15 minutes, we haven't had anybody who's been like, I don't get this. This doesn't make any sense. The other nice thing about that piece of it is that they never ask us why that vocabulary is there anymore. So nobody ever says there's too many buttons. By the end of that by the end of modeling for 10 minutes, they never ask us, why are there so many buttons? And they never ask us, where's the bathroom either. Because they know how to use the vocabulary that's on that page, they actually use it, which means the kid actually gets access to it. And then the kid starts to use it to communicate. And I will say, like, our rates of communication for our kids using AAC systems, much, 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 much higher. Our abandonment rate is actually pretty low. I'd say it's below 10% at this point in time. And that's with 180 kids. So that's a pretty big sample size of kids who are using, and by 180, I mean like our high-end AAC systems. So our eye gaze systems, our iPads, things like that. We obviously have more kids using like switches and lower tech communication systems and PECs, all of those things. But for our high-end AAC systems, our abandonment rate really is below 10%. Is our implementation rate 90%? No, but it's a million times better than it used to be. So when we go into a classroom now, those devices are always out, on, and charged. That was our first big crusade. They're available to students. Teachers know how to use them. They know what vocabulary is on there. The homework piece, we're still trying to get people totally on board with that. I think that'll be our big push next year. And then as part of that, what we're developing, there's a couple of research studies. One is called IMPACT, of course, with 2 A's, right? IMPACT AAC. And that was a research project that brought parents in and taught them how to model on AAC systems during literacy concepts. They just did literacy, so they just had them come in and read books with kids and use that core vocabulary to model. We're working on something similar so that our SLPs become that driving force of the SLP at the school trains the classroom on how to model. And then, they're in there once a week, twice a week, 3 times, 4 times a week, getting kids they'll, keep facilitating that and helping them model throughout the school year. The nice thing about the Word of the Week lessons, though, if I'm a speech pathologist and I need my classroom working on something, I say, here's the Word of the Week lessons, do them this way. And then you're working on the same things, right? So they know what to work on. You know that it's being worked on outside of your speech sessions. If you're a classroom teacher, you know that you're not the only one trying to make this happen, but you've got a lot more support just kind of built in. And it runs itself, right? So there's not one for every single week of the school year yet. There should be by the end of the next school year, though. There should be however many weeks are in your school year, there should be enough weeks for that. And they're adaptable. So our preschool kids who are only there twice a week, you can do half of the lessons. They're short enough that you could pull them into your schedule twice during a preschool session. We tried to make it really flexible that way. But again, the main focus of all of the lessons is to get the adults in the room familiar with where's the vocabulary, how does it work, how do I use it, when are some opportunities that I can use it, because if the adults in the room are using it with the student, that's how the student's going to learn, is that access to that vocabulary and the modeling and the system. Okay. That's it in a nutshell. And I know we raced through that. But again, all of the prompts are on the screen. You don't have to prepare anything. You've really just got to pull up the PowerPoint either on your projector, your computer, your iPad, print it up in advance, and you can be up and running with this. So any questions, any comments, hey, Eric, what you really should have done is this, because I promise we're always looking to improve it. So where are the slides available and are they free? Kent's listening in so he can modify my answer at any point. So what we have is we have all of the slides in a Google Drive. Kent's going to share those out. He's in charge of that. Are they free? Yes, with a caveat. So as you can tell going through, we used symbol sticks icons when we built this. The reason we did that is because, again, our go-to AAC system is the Proloquo Go, which uses those same symbols. So we wanted it to match. So it works really well for us. They are copyrighted, however. So you do have to have a symbol sticks subscription one time in order to access them. So Kent's going to help us out with that. And the UATT Central office has offered to pay for a symbol sticks license for everybody that would like access to the core Word of the Week curriculum. So, or for each team, I should say, not every single person. So
ask them if they have questions again and give them just a minute to see if they have time to respond.
Yeah, so questions, and two ways to respond, by the way. So there's a chat box, which may be hidden on your screen, or you can unmute your microphone if you have a headset microphone. I know some people might not have a microphone, though. They're probably just listening in. So you can also email probably Kent if you have a question, and we'll stick around for a few minutes and answer those. I know the emails might take a little bit longer to come in.
Hey, Kent.
So yeah, on your screen, hopefully you have a...
Jody Lynn's asking.
Okay.
Do you have your speakers on?
You said
I might not have it turned up very much. Try again, Jody Lynn.
Jordan District Team.
I cannot hear
like
Jody
to
Lynn.
do the symbol sticks.
My screen.
Say that
Can you
again,
hear me
Jody
now?
Lynn, sorry. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, I can hear now.
Awesome. So for Jordan District, yeah, we'd like to have access to that symbol sticks.
Okay, great. So is what we'll do, currently most of the lessons that Eric gave me are in a Google Drive folder.
Mm-hmm.
I'll send that out, a link to that, so you guys can access those to see them now.
Yeah.
But Eric said they're going to work on them over the summer. And so is what we'll do is the beginning of the school year next year, we'll find a way to access, to give everyone access to those, whether it's Google Drive or we'll ship you
Dropbox, a flash drive.
Because they were huge, right?
It's a pretty big file. You can't email all of the weeks. And that was the other question we had from Amelia, like how many lessons are there? There's 32 weeks right now. There's 5 lessons per week. So that's around 160 lessons total. Honestly though, if you only had 32-week lessons, like if we stopped working on it, by the time you get to the end, just go back to the beginning. I mean, it's developmental vocabulary, and very few of our kids reach proficiency within a week, if any. So going back through those lessons is fine. But yeah, Google Drive is probably going to be our go-to, but I know some people won't have access to it that way. We can do a Dropbox, we can do a bunch of different ways. It shouldn't be too hard to share. And if we're doing, Kent, if we're doing a big meeting at like team leader meeting at the first of the year, that's the plan. So yeah, we could even share it out on a thumb drive to everybody right then at the start of the school year next year. Okay. And then Kent also recorded the training. So he's going to send out a link to it, so that if you have teachers that you're like, hey, I would like to explain this to you, but I'd rather you watch it, you can do that. Again, I think the amount of training that people actually need to get up and running with it is they need to open up the PowerPoint, click through the slides, see what they say, and do it.
One question is, when will you be working on it this summer, and can they be modified? Yeah,
so all of these are just in a PowerPoint. So number one, you'll have access. You just save your own copy of that PowerPoint, and you can modify it until your heart is content. If you hate what we did, or you like say, hey, this part of it I like, this part of it I don't. For example, like your Prolo Quota Go slides where we were finding the word on the devices, your devices may look different, so you may want to change that so it looks like your devices. If you don't have a go-to device though, it's still a good activity because kids are looking, they're searching, they're differentiating. You could still use it, but yeah, you could absolutely take the pictures out, put in the pictures that you want. If you're using, say, a Dynavox system that has their symbols, you can just switch those symbols out, no problem. Yep. If you want to change what the prompts are on the screen, you can go through, you can change all of that. You just need to save your own copy. So I think when we send them out, we'll send them as a read only, but that doesn't mean that you can't save your own copy and do whatever you'd like with it. Okay.
So another question is, do you keep moving on if you feel that some of your students haven't caught on to the word of the week?
So yeah, so what does pacing look like? That's a really good question. Again, ours is set up to be word of the week. And it goes back to the kind of crucial question. The crucial question is this curriculum designed to reach mastery for the student, or is it designed to really introduce it to the student and teach the adults in the room how to use it on a day-to-day, hourly basis? We keep moving on, quite honestly. We have some teachers that'll spend 2 weeks on a word of the week, and that's fine. We have some 2 weeks I think is probably our most, because they get bored with it. The real power becomes, once you've got a vocabulary list of 30 words and you as the teacher know how to model all of those 32 words, and you know how to put them together, and you know how to, say 2 to 3 word sentences, the amount of modeling that you're going to be doing for those students is so much higher that's how they're going to actually learn to use it. It's sort of the same thing as a developmentally appropriate, language. Like we use, 25,000 words with a little baby before they give us back one, right? That's a pretty high ratio. One word after 25,000. And that's after a couple of years of 25,000 words. Same thing with this. What we really want to do is increase the access and the modeling and the demonstrating and the usage of it. That's what's really going to teach the students how to use it. So do they have to know where that word of the week is? The student doesn't, but the staff does. So the more you're doing it, and the word of the week is actually a pretty good pace. And the nice part about that is, again, if I walk in on a Tuesday, I know it's literacy. If I walk in on a Wednesday, I know it's math. If I walk in on a Thursday, I know it's a review. If I walk in on Friday, I know it's the folder, or if you didn't have a device with folders, you could change it. Again, but that consistency piece is really, really nice for our teachers. Again, simplicity was sort of a key to getting people to use it and to make it work. So yeah, we move on. The students, again, we have very few students who will master a word in a week, especially with all the different kinds of usage of that word in all of the different locations, at lunch, at recess, at home. So it's nice to have more access to vocabulary. And honestly, once we go in and help people model, they're not just modeling that word of the week. That's our focus that week. So any chance we get to use that word, we do. But we're also modeling other words during that week on those devices, unless it's like a single switch, right? And then we might have 2 single switches with one dedicated to the word of the week and one dedicated to something they already kind of know.
Do you use the same curriculum for all ages and grades?
So same curriculum, we do. We tried to make it, again, there's some hip stuff in there. So if you know My Adidas, you know, an older kid might catch that reference. What we found is, so when Chris Bouguet came, he talked about the idea of SNUG, right? Which is spontaneous, novel utterance generation, meaning students can say what they want to say, how they want to say it, when they want to say it. And we don't have any students like that in our district currently. We're getting much, much better with this implementation, but we didn't have any students who were even close to that. And so really what we found is our older students who didn't have access to a good teaching system for AAC, number one, they've been through 5 different systems. They've been through PECS, they've been through sign language, they've been through paper, they've been through switches, they've been through so much that very few of our students who started in kindergarten or preschool end up in high school with the same system that they started out. We're hoping that changes now that we kind of have a go-to system for most of our kids and a way to teach that. So yeah, we do. We actually use this with post-high school students who are still learning how to use an AAC system, or if they're lower language single switch kids, because when they started school, and tell me if I'm wrong, but most districts didn't have a core vocabulary focus 15, 20 years ago. We were still very much noun based on our AAC systems. We were into differentiating. We were into symbol size and location versus what that vocabulary was. So our older students right now really haven't had, 10 years of core vocabulary instruction, which is really what they need to make a base so that they can build and grow off of. So yeah, we tried to make it cool enough that you could use it as a high school level. Might need some adaptation, but it's simple enough that it works across the board. And we've had a few people who have said, well, this lesson didn't really fit. Like, it was way too young for my kids. Some of the stories might be a really good example of that. The stories in the literacy day, those aren't necessarily age appropriate for a high school or a post-high kid. But there's plenty of other things that you can pull in. And like I said, we're trying to look at some resources that we could pull in to make those things more age appropriate. Other things that you could quickly pull in would be music, right? If you go through pop music, core vocabulary is in all of that music. So, I've seen examples of kids on AAC systems back when Let It Go was really big a year or two ago. Sorry if that's triggering for PTSD for anybody out there with kids. But those kids were singing Go or pressing Go on their iPad or their AAC system to sing along with those songs, right? And you can do that age appropriate all the way through. I mean, even if you just pulled out a Beatles catalog, right? Like, that's age appropriate preschool to age 85 now. And all of that vocabulary is going to be in there, and that's another way you could bring it in and use it. So,
yeah, good. Somebody else asked, does it matter what word of the week you use, or can it be rearranged if needed? What's the overall flow?
So we did them again. So the overall flow, and I don't know I think everybody's hearing you as well. So I'm just assuming they're hearing you ask that question.
I think so.
Okay, sorry. Otherwise, I'm just answering a question that nobody heard. So the question is about the flow. So we set them up weekly. Could you rearrange those? Absolutely. Like, it doesn't matter at all. We took the words though off of a developmental vocabulary list that was developmental vocabulary and AAC vocabulary, and kind of hooked together. That was the Gail Van Tatenhove list. So she sort of has an order, not a specific order, but like a general order, like first 10 words, first 20 words, first 30 words. That's where we took our stuff. And we also tried to start with the highest impact words. So I think our very first words are all done, stop, want, no, right? These are all words that you can use all the time right off the bat. So we tried to start with our highest impact words, but could you mix and match? Absolutely. There's, again, the real power in the lessons is that they're repeatable week to week, meaning the lessons, the idea of the daily lesson stays the same, but the vocabulary doesn't matter. So you could add in your own words. If you wanted to start with go to the bathroom, you sure could, which means maybe you'd start with the word go. right? And then add bathroom on top of that. So the flow of it doesn't really matter. You can change it. You can do what you want with it. Most of our teachers find it really easy, though, to go, I'm on week 1. Now I go to week 2. Now I go to week 3. So they don't have to think about it. Okay. Thank you for the feedback, everybody. By the way, appreciate it. I will say this was a crazy amount of work. We decided to do it to start building this. Like we finally, all of the ideas kind of coalesced about 3 weeks into the school year last year. So the school year had already started. We were already super duper busy. And then we said, why don't we develop lessons for every day of the week for the rest of the school year? It was a crazy, crazy amount of work. But again, like having the system made it work. So being repeatable. So if you wanted to take it and say, actually, we want to modify it this way, having a basic framework for it made it really easy actually to do the lessons. And I have to give huge shout outs to 2 people, especially Emma Kruger / Norton. Just had a name change. She's an SLP in our district. She did a huge amount of work on these lessons, as did one of our other SLPs. She did all of the homework. She did about a quarter of the weekly lessons as well. And then we also pulled in other SLPs and teachers to kind of help us. We ended up doing most of the work, but we got them to sit down and decide, what should this look like? What kind of pictures, what kind of activities should we involve in this? So it really was a district-wide thing. So thanks to everybody in our school district who helped out with it as well. But we're pretty happy with it. I'll say that. It's nice when I, as an assistive technology specialist, walk into a school and I see a lesson being taught on core vocabulary, and there's 5 different kinds of devices out in the room, including, a kid who's got a head switch and a kid who's got an eye gaze device, and they're all participating in the same lessons, as well as the kid who's hyperverbal but doesn't know how to use that vocabulary as much yet. So we've seen really good things with it. Does take a little bit of maintenance to keep people up and using it, and that's what we're working on for next year. Is what does that look like? How do we send out reminders, responses, that kind of thing? As we do that, I might just send those to Kent next year and say, hey, here's what we're doing. If other people want to just copy and paste and send that out to their teachers, that would be fine. Because again, the only reason we didn't share it sooner was we had to get around the question of the copyright issue for the symbols. And again, you can take those symbols out. You can put in your own symbols. So if you use the Mayor Johnson symbols, or if you have a free symbol library that you like to use and you like those pictures better, just swap them out. Okay.
Can you see if there's other comments? My computer was at 20% and it shut down.
Shut down at 20%. Sorry if I've missed a question. By the way, if you want to type it back in at the bottom, I'm trying to scroll up. I think we got most of them though. Rearranged.
Yeah,
and there's some thank you. And really, thanks for the feedback. I really appreciate it. If you can think of something that you want or would rather that should have been there that isn't, again, we don't think we nailed this the first time out of the gate, but we did a pretty good job. But there's definitely some room for improvement on there. And again, that's going to kind of come down to that. How do you modify it? So our kids who get beyond this and who are using 2 to 3 to 4 words, what we would typically do with those kids is say, okay, here's the core vocabulary word. Now, how do you add stuff on? But that's not part of the lessons. Yeah. And there's probably a better idea still out there, All right.
Okay. So again, I'll send out a link to what we have in the Google Drive just shortly after this meeting. And then next year, I don't think we'll ask who wants the symbol sticks this year. But the beginning of next year, we'll put out the request for whichever teams would like to buy into it. Not buy in specifically.
Have the license so that we don't get in any trouble.
Right,
that's our concern.
So UATT Central will help purchase those for the first year. And then we'll just kind of see what happens after that, just so that we're above board that way. And then we'll probably talk about it a little bit more, as Eric said, in the team leader meeting next year. And we'll send out information on that. So anyway, if there's not any other questions, looks like we're good. Thanks for joining us, and thanks to Eric and his team for putting this together and offering it up. What a great resource for all of us, and kind of goes back to what our focus was with Gail Bowser when she came out was, building capacity within our teams and then sharing it with the other teams. We need to get a lot better about doing that. And when I say we, I mean you at Central for the most part, and kind of gathering what people are creating and then putting them out there and finding a place to put that for the other teams to use. So it'll just make us stronger as a state AT system.
I will say this has cut down on the amount of evaluations we have to do as well, because kids have already experienced using AAC in the classroom. So we already sort of know what works before anybody has to go out there, or they know what they want to try because they've seen it work with various levels of kids. So it's been like the work that we put into this paid off huge on the amount of work that we have to do with AAC and evaluations and all of that stuff now. Like all of that stuff is much lower. So we're doing less day-to-day work for evaluations and that kind of thing, but we're still doing work to maintain it and actually implement it, which is the piece that we were always missing. Like we just didn't implement stuff very well. We tested a lot of stuff, but this solved that, kind of flipped that paradigm. So, we spend 10% of our time evaluating kids now, 90% supporting.
Oh, that's great. Real good. Okay, well, thanks for joining us. I'll archive this and send it out to the teams that couldn't see
it. And if you have specific questions, you're free to email me as well. We can send that back out when we send it out. We'll include my email on there as well. You feel free to email me. I might forward it on to some of my team members to answer for you, but that just means it'll be a better answer. But we're happy to help out and answer questions and help you figure out some things as well.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for joining us.
Yep. Bye.
Thanks, Eric.